Rather wake up too early.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
Oh boy, and we're here.
We're in it. We're here with Josh.
Josh Evans. It's been a while. We haven't done this podcast in a while, but we're glad to have you on.
Hey,
we did one, Jacob. You just weren't here, man.
Oh, that's very cool.
Oh, yeah, we got to do our shout-outs first, so we got to check us out on social media. YouTube, what are we going to talk about? On Instagram, too. BitChute.
If there's anyone you guys want to see, let us know.
On Spotify, yeah.
Spotify, Apple Music.
And if you disagree with anything that we say, let us know, and we'll bring you on, and we'll discuss it.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Tell us about yourself. Give us a little rundown.
Absolutely.
Just your life.
All righty, yeah. Well, my name's Josh Evans. I work with Jacob here on the podcast. I don't work on the podcast, but and I live in Ohio now, but I'm originally from Tennessee, and my dad was in the Marines. So growing up, I lived in California, Florida. I had to move a lot. The advantage of that was you have to make friends quickly, so you learn to communicate well. Finally, I'll skip ahead through all the high school stuff, pretty normal. And I was getting ready to actually go to the Marine Corps. That was like my goal. And I'm my faith is a big part of me. So you guys probably hear that in this podcast some. Big part of who I am. But I was in the delayed entry program. I actually wanted to be a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps. So I was training. I was accepted to the Citadel. And then I believe
the Citadel. Wait, what's the Citadel?
The Citadel. It's a military college in Charleston, South Carolina. The Citadel Bulldogs. So I'm already got tangents. I'm trying to stay on track. So
don't worry about it, man. We're built on tangents.
Well, one thing that helped me there was I'm from a small town, or I lived in a small town in East Tennessee, and there's a 4-star general that lives there. So it's a small town. You got this 4-star general there, and General Carl Steiner. And the quarterback, I played football. The quarterback on our team, it was his great uncle. So obviously I go bell hay for him. And when you got a 4-star general driving around, like, you want to like impress them. Like so you're working hard as you can. And, so he wrote me a letter. He's like, I'll write you a letter to West Point, Naval Academy, whatever. And his carried a lot of weight. But I just wanted the Citadel. I had some good connections there, and, I was really excited about it, but yeah, I got really close. And then, I believe that God told me not to go there. It wasn't for me. Nothing wrong with it. It's just it wasn't my journey, my path. And I'll be honest, I was a little frustrated, but I trust him. I was frustrated. And so last minute, honestly, I was like, okay, I'll go to University of Knoxville. That's where I'm from, basically. And then they were not taking students. So I ended up at Tennessee Tech University. So it worked out because I ended up meeting my wife there. I was a pre-law major, political science, pre-law. And my plans changed again. So I was accepted at Georgetown. I was going to go to law school at Georgetown, took the LSATs and all that. And met my wife. I was a senior, and I was not looking for a girlfriend at all. And she still makes fun of me. So I actually used a corny pickup line I heard from Jeremy Piven. So I wasn't trying to impress her, but there was like...
Remember the line?
I do. I'll share it. So there was 4 girls standing at the house. I was actually going to go home because I was the nerdy kid that'd go home, go to sleep, and get up in the morning and work out in the gym. And we had a mixer. There's no alcohol in a mixer. So what happens is after the mixer's over, they leave, air quotations, and then they come back, and then the alcohol comes out, and they hang out and have party till 4 in the morning, whatever. I had stuff to do the next day. So anyways, I see these 4 girls. I was just like, I'm going to introduce them. So I walk over. My wife was actually one of the group. And I just walked up and said, how much does a polar bear weigh? You probably heard this.
Oh, yeah.
And they look at me and they kind of like, who is this guy? And I was like, enough to break the ice. And I just actually reached out to my wife and shook her hand and introduced myself. And yeah, man, we were...
you got to take chances.
I know, it's funny.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, but I wasn't trying to pick her up. So that's probably because if I was, I probably wouldn't have said something that stupid because she'd be like, this guy's an idiot. But yeah, we got married like 6 months later. So,
wow.
Yeah, I was graduating college, and so then I didn't go to Georgetown. So yeah, my journey, man, it's been all over the place. But now I'm here and working at Armcorp Construction where Jacob works. So we are a federal contractor, and I know some of your listeners may have listened to Kyle Fort Camp. You've had him on before, but yeah, we're a federal contractor primarily, and just do general construction. So it's kind of a nutshell. So
Yeah.
What brought you up to Celina
Yeah.
Armcorp?
absolutely. So Tim Rosengarten, the owner, my dad actually. I grew up. He was like I said, he was in the Marines, and he's a framer. He's a beast. Like he was one of the strongest guys like I've known. Like Jacob, you know him. Like he's like a hairy gorilla too. So, but he's a beast. So, anyways, he got this. I don't know how he found out. He got this job offer, and he told me about me. This is how I know God has a hand in this. I have zero construction experience, zero, and I think. To be honest, I think they were desperate because we were a new company at the time. And he asked for a superintendent. Guys, I don't even know what a reciprocating saw is. Like a sawzall, right? Like super common because it's just not something I did. And they put me on, like if Tim listens to this, he's going to be like, wow, don't put this out in public. But he puts me on a $2.3 million project.
Right away, first one.
Yeah. And I had a guy there helping who had a ton of experience. Don't get me wrong, but like, after like a week or two, he left me, and I was nervous, man. But but the thing was, I think you can do really well. Like a lot of people, we have inferiority complexes. Sometimes you just think like, if you just listen and ask questions, like if I'd hear someone say something like, "Hey, I'm gonna go do this," I'm like, "Okay, sure." I'd write it down and go home and study. YouTube can teach you a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And so, that's how I got there. And he needed a super. Actually, got bailed. If this wouldn't have happened, I never would have been here. So this guy was a super. He hired him. He just never showed up, and they needed a job. So.
Wow.
So yeah, Dad's like, I know my son. He's got a degree.
Yeah.
And political science, pre-law, not construction. So
It sounds like they got lucky with you though. Either way.
well, it worked out, man. It worked out. It's that's why I try not to. It's hard for me when I have someone I interview to use the lack of experience because that's unfair. Because I'm like, man, I didn't have a lot of experience, so I kind of look for.
Thank you.
Their moxie.
I'm looking for jobs right now.
Hey.
I'm going through it. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, it kind of shows like I had no idea anything about construction either, and you guys still hired me as an estimator. I'm like, there's still some days I'm sitting there, I'm like, I have no idea what the hell you just said.
Yeah, but the knowledge though, from when you start to even now is insane. It's like insane.
It's more about potential.
Absolutely. Yeah. How do you get experience if you, like I always say, like it's like you need to get credit. If you don't have credit and they all want you to get credit, like how do you get it? Like you want experience, but they won't hire you. It's like, it's very frustrating. But that's how I ended up at Armcorp.
Awesome. How's the Armcorp done throughout the whole coronavirus?
Man, that's it. We are very fortunate. I'll just say that like there's a lot of companies that have really struggled. Fortunately, being where we work on critical healthcare, obviously they have to keep taking care of it. Yeah, we're essential, so we can't move. And it's definitely had an impact, but we've had a really good team. So
good.
Probably an impact for the good, made you better off.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a PPP program. Not to bore everybody with it, but they're not really sure how that's going to go. But they basically gave out some money that you may or may not have to give back. So we're trying to be smart.
What a weird program.
Yeah.
I've talked to different restaurant owners. I work with a lot of restaurants, and they got PPP money too, and none of them know how it works either.
No.
It's like, here's some money, maybe.
Yeah, they're still trying to figure it out, man.
What are you talking about, maybe?
They have no clue. We're getting emails by the day saying, okay, you don't have to pay it back, and then we'll get an email like a week later saying, okay, you have to pay it all back, and then it's like 50% back. So at this point, we're just trying our best not to spend it, because if we have to give it back, then
That's weird.
Yeah. They don't know.
And they're doing another one now.
Yeah. Well, you know who's over it if you on Twitter, Mark Cuban. He's like
he's really over the small business part of it too.
Yeah.
I saw him he was really trying to push to help small businesses.
Yeah.
So is he actually in with the government making these decisions?
I think the government basically, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know the exact details, but it seems like they've pulled him in to let him be like a liaison.
That's how it should be, dude. If you run a business and you're going to run your business, you should probably help.
They do that a lot.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense.
Elon Musk was on some board
but you'd be surprised. Like the Fed is like 900 only PhD recipients. Like none of them have any business history really at all.
Oh man,
they're all just PhD. That's what I mean. Like they need to take people that have experience.
Yep, absolutely.
Because experience triumphs way over just book knowledge.
Oh yeah. Well, you guys have probably heard of Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh, I love Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah, he wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad.
That one's a really good one.
It's awesome.
You told me to read that book.
You should, Jacob.
Yeah.
I think I might have it. I'll give it to you.
Okay.
It's
the pensions. Have you been listening about how he talks about the pension funds?
I don't think.
Yeah, like he's kind of discovered how most of the public pension funds are all insolvent. Like Ohio just declared insolvency on their pension. Like the people who were contracted to manage the pension funds spent all of the money.
That's awful.
And it's like, I think Chicago's on their third bailout of their firefighter and police pensions.
Holy cow.
Like, it's going to be a big problem because there's so many, that's such a big sector of taxes too.
Huge. It's huge. And obviously all of our demographic, you should not be planning on even Social Security being around.
No. Yeah.
If it's there, cool. But
That's a weird place to be because it's never designed to do something like that, and they just did it.
Our generation
it doesn't make any
Our
sense.
generation is going to be taught to like just take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually interesting because in our parents' generation, and actually they talked about they didn't do great at saving, but they're finding our generation younger is actually much better savers. They're spending a lot less on bigger luxury items than most because the quote American dreams kind of shifted, and we know, but we saw the 2008. We were through all that, and we're like, we don't want to do that. So I think a generation is by default now a little more conservative with our funds. So maybe that's better for us. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think it's like a throwback to the 30 depression era because during the 30s. 3 families were buying a mansion and living in it just because it was like, it was not, you did not build a house that was just ginormous.
Absolutely. That's what's so amazing. So, we were actually, before we came to the podcast, we kind of went on, we were all going around and talking about books, but one of my favorite biographies I've read was by Ron Chernoff, but he wrote, it's called Washington. So it's about George Washington, and it's phenomenal. It's almost 800 to 1,000 pages, fine print, and I read it, and it was like a novel. It wasn't dry because biographies can sometimes be dry.
Very dry.
Yeah, and it's phenomenal. And then you read George Washington, which was one of the most esteemed men. Every single one of these guys live so above their means. It's incredible to keep up their image. Yeah. I mean, that's so weird.
He is almost a deity of America. Like
exactly.
George Washington.
Those dudes would be the people with out in tanks, driving around on their property shooting tanks and stuff. Like they were crazy. Yeah. Like they were insane.
Oh, yeah. I've heard stories like when they're in the Continental Congress, like if they got mad at each other, disagreed, they'd all go around in circles and just beat the crap out of each other, and then go right back at right back at debating.
Well, that's like Seattle still has laws from that era where the police don't have to. They only have to break up a fight if somebody's starting to get hurt, really really. Beaten up to a pulp, whatever. If they're on the ground and they're just beating them up, there's videos of cops in Seattle just it's
like a hockey game almost.
That's how we're grown adults.
Exactly.
You should be able to settle your disagreements however you want them.
That's how they used to do it. So some people will say the political environment is so much more is so much worse now than but then man, I mean I don't know the guy, but everyone probably knows the story of the dude that just got beat almost into a coma on the floor. He was in the House of Reps, and he just got beat down with a cane or something. He could barely walk afterwards. That was like they're passing a bill or something. They get in an argument. He just gets beat down to a pulp.
There's so many stories like that. I've heard the same exact thing. They talk about how the political theater is so crazy and hurtful and whatever. And it's dude.
It's people
read
tweeting.
History.
They were tweeting.
Relax. It's not making that big of an impact.
And the crazy thing is Twitter is 2% of the U.S.'s population.
Oh man.
Such a.
I'm not on Twitter, man.
I know. I'm not on Twitter.
I'm not on Twitter either.
Unfortunately, I am. I'm not on any other social media.
It's good for news if you just follow news and stuff.
I unsubscribe from a lot of people, but I think the danger with Twitter is no matter where you're at it becomes an echo chamber because you follow only those who think like you, and those who don't think like you, they're like, those are idiots, unfollow. And so you don't ever get challenged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good point.
Just by talking to you a little bit, we're probably not going to get in a lot of debates here. I feel like we might be on the same page for a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you go through reading, you talked about some different books you've read. What are you really looking for? Do you read books just for pleasure, or do you only read things that you think grow you?
It's funny. That's a good question. There was a time where when I first started reading, it was simply because my motives were a bit, like I said earlier, pretentious. I just wanted to read to be smart. And not that being smart's bad, but it was just to have book knowledge, which is, again, that's pretentious. That's not really a good reason in my opinion. But it got me reading. So now it sincerely has changed me so much, and I can tell it's a small culmination of little like you read. I mean, I don't know how many books I've read now, but over time it's helped me to speak better, to write better, to communicate. And actually, one thing that's underestimated is the reason I like novels and classics is you learn to empathize with humans. Like you see stories and things that you would never see. You can be in a world that you would never be in. So it's actually I actually enjoy it, but. For me, I don't read a lot of, I'll be honest, I don't read much what would be considered pleasure. Like, the only guy I've read occasionally that I like is, you guys ever heard of Brad Thor? If not, it's fine. He's like on New York's bestsellers every once in a while, but he has a dude named Scott Harvath. It's like a Black Ops thing, but that's like a 2-day read I'll throw in, and it's like you're watching an action movie. But for the most part, I enjoy reading history. I like to read personal development, finance, economics. I really like the classics. It can get dry sometimes. I have to mix it up. But
I always make fun of Frank for reading dry books.
Yeah,
because I like reading for fun.
Yeah,
and
there's nothing wrong with that.
I'll throw in some educational stuff. Yeah. But to me, it's mostly fun, anyways. But he's reading Sigmund Freud.
Sigmund Freud.
I always base all my readings off of just logic.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like you probably do too. It's like stuff that has like a logical base. To it.
It's kind of amazing just see like what things read, because like I read a lot of history, war, and like history stuff, like the killing
Josh,
Lincoln.
What kind of history are you into? Is it mostly war based, or do you get all over the place?
Honestly, I'm all over the place. So like currently a book, I try to find something that I don't know a lot about. So currently, actually, after this podcast, I'll probably finish it tonight. I only got like 40 pages left. It's called The Lion's Den, and it's phenomenal. It's actually written by, you guys may have heard of Stephen Pressfield, phenomenal author. So he writes, his probably most famous book is called Gates of Fire.
I read that one. I was telling these guys about it.
Oh yeah, what'd you think about it? You read it fresh.
I absolutely
recently, right?
Yeah, I just got finished with it probably a month ago.
Yeah, I was like 3 years since I read it.
Fantastic.
It's the Battle of Thermopylae.
Yeah.
And it's also, he does like a historical fiction. Yep. So obviously you don't know what these guys, but he takes historical facts and then he just
fills in the gaps.
Yeah. So it's I read one by called The Warrior Ethos from him, one from about Alexander the Great, and that was phenomenal. But this one's called The Lions, and this is actually probably more historical than any of them. But it's about the 6-Day War. And if you've ever read about the 6-Day War, it is the most mind-boggling war that's ever happened. Like, they've ran simulations. Israel. Israel's being attacked by, this is like in 1967.
Okay.
So you have Syria. You have Egypt was the main, Nasser. You have Jordan, Iraq. And you got this little Israel, who's not even been a state that long at that point.
Probably only 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. So they're military. They don't even have their own planes. They're getting these old planes. And long story short, in 6 days, they rout all of these guys coming that are like 10 times the size. They have 10 times, they have better tanks, better planes, everything. And they're a tenth their size. And in 6 days, they rout them. It's phenomenal. Like, they got to where they were actually, the UN had to, so what happened was in the UN, Russia's part of the Security Council. So if you're familiar with the UN, there's 6 permanent members and they rotate, and Russia is one of those. And so that one member in a Security Council can veto anything. And so that's what Russia does a lot, and them, America, and Cold War and all that stuff. But Russia didn't want Israel. So didn't want Israel taking more land they already had, so it actually backfired. Their arrogance of Egypt backfired. So Egypt had a lot of propaganda. They were getting decimated, but they were put on the radio, hey, we're winning, we're destroying them. And so Israel didn't fix it because they're like, hey, let them believe that, because Russia then won't jump in. Once Russia found out what was happening, all of a sudden the UN's rushing out there to stop them. So they finally get a ceasefire in place, and they stop after 6 days. They've already retaken the West Wall, the Wailing Wall, that was built by actually King Ahab. But they had taken back. They were in Golan. Is it Golan Heights? I can't think
to the east.
I think so. It's looking it up. It's a real popular area. But anyways, and they just route them, man. So anyways, it's just phenomenal. So I kind of went on a tangent there, but I just like to read about things I don't understand or don't know much about.
Yeah. Do you read a lot? I know you're very religious.
That's the northern border.
So does that area like bring more to it just because it's such a religious epicenter?
It actually, to be honest, it probably did not at first. I didn't at the time. It didn't really have much impact. But once I started reading and seeing how they did it, like I personally, it's almost hard to not. I know some people believe and don't believe. It's hard to explain logically how this happened. And actually, just to put this in perspective, when I was in school at college, I had a professor, Dr. Gunner, and this guy was probably at the whole university the most. Academics aren't really famous, but he was the most famous in academia. So he would literally miss class because President Bush would call him in. He had to go to the White House for briefings. He was the leading expert in the world on the Kurds. So he was there to he
Where did he teach?
Tennessee Tech University.
What class?
I took like 6 or 7 classes from him. So
a lot
foreign
of
policy, international law, and I was taking him as a freshman. They're like, "You're crazy." I actually made a B his first. I only made 4 Bs in college, and that was my first B. And I was so ticked, but I was like, people was like, "Don't take him." I was like, "Man, I gotta learn. I don't care about GPA. I want to learn from this guy."
So he was a tough.
Yeah. After that, I figured it out.
Teacher,
a lot of essays and stuff. But he says there's 3 things. And he's like, I'm an agnostic. He's like, I don't know if there's a God or not. He said, but I can tell there's 3 things that I cannot explain other than potentially a God. And these are interesting. So number 1 is, and they're not in order, but Rasputin. He's like, have you ever read about Rasputin?
Oh, yeah.
He's
a meme lord.
Yeah. I see some people say, he's like, I can't, the things that he did, the impact, the impact he had on the Russian family, czars and all that. He's like, I just don't understand it. Number 2 was Joan of Arc. He's like, how a 14-year-old peasant girl could.
I've read a little bit about Joan of Arc, and I've always kind of been hesitant that it was just kind of just a myth.
That's a thing that there's people who believe that. That's I've not looked into, the apologetics, if you will, of that, but it's possible.
And like, don't get me wrong, like I haven't read into it that much, but I've definitely heard about the story, like how it's just, to me, it's like almost
insane.
It's illogical that a 14-year-old girl would do the things that Joan of Arc did.
That's exactly what he said. He's like, now, and he actually didn't take the route. And again, I'm not studied. Maybe I need to. Maybe that's my next book. Joan of Arc. There you go. But he's like, I don't understand how a 14-year-old girl did the things she did. Like, literally changed the scope of history.
Yeah.
And then the third thing was the 6-Day War. He said, he's like, I don't understand how this happened.
Dude, I feel like half that stuff is just, a lot of it was going on without us even knowing. Like a lot more happened behind the scenes than they were even close to even knowing about.
Absolutely. It's always the case.
Because I think of like, what was it? The Battle of 76 Easting. Was that it?
Yeah.
Like, we absolutely decimated Iran.
Yeah.
And like, that was, nobody thought that was going to happen. No. Iran had the 3rd greatest military in the world.
Which one was it?
The Battle of 76 Easting, was it? I believe it was.
It would have been like Desert Storm.
That was the Desert Storm Gulf War.
Yeah, I was actually reading a book about that, and the guy was like, basically, he was a guy, he was behind the front line.
73 Easting.
He was like the backup, and literally, he said, as he was driving down the road, there would be like Iraqi tanks and stuff, and dead bodies everywhere, and they just kept going. They never stopped. They just kept going and kept going and kept going.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they just kept on dead bodies, and the next one just kept going, and it was insane. He's like, we've never went this quick. Ever.
And I think I think we overestimate a lot of the Middle East too.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as their military strength.
Military strength. Yeah, exactly.
Hey man, U.S. dumps like 60% of their GDP into military.
No, we don't jump that much. We only jump like GDP, it's like 700%. I think we spend like 700 billion. We spend like 1.6 trillion on Medicare.
It's the largest of any of the government spending.
I think I know what's.
I don't think anymore
compared to the other nations.
Yeah, like China's second. You could take like
2 through
billion.
I don't know the top. I don't know what the number is. Maybe in 2020, but for a while it was like the top 7 or 8 combined was still less than the United States when we spent our military. I actually don't know what the recent number is, but
I think last time I looked was China was second.
Not like us.
China was second with like 250 billion, and the U.S. had like 600 or 800 billion.
And we have such an advantage too, as far as just being surrounded by oceans.
54%.
Some people have argued that
54.
That alone would keep us safe from any invaders
Yeah, there it is. There's the pie chart there. 50.
Which, I mean, that's one of the main things the governments are made for.
That's crazy, though. I look at that. That is insane.
54%.
Don't get me wrong. It's definitely like way too much spent on military. But there's also just as much not useful things spent in the other categories too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's funny. I've heard stories about Christian Barrett, his brother's in the Air Force, and he said that sometimes they repair F-18s with duct tape.
Wow.
Because they couldn't get the funding to like actually repair it, so they'd be using.
It's like the B-52s are the same B-52s since that we made in the 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are all the originals. They were built to last.
So where's the money going?
Government projects and stuff. Like how we were talking about compartmentalization, like that's where most of the money's going, is stuff that is off the books.
Yeah, that's weird though.
I wonder how much goes to, I know it's a small percentage, but how much goes to military retirement students? It's kind of like a pension. I mean,
I think it said that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it did?
I think it said veteran affairs.
Oh, okay. Was that part of it? Yeah, it's funny, like you were saying earlier, way too much. It's just kind of like in the Cold War, we were like competing with Russia, like, well, I can destroy the world 13 times, and I can destroy it like 16. It's like, you only need to do it once. So
what was it?
It's way too much until it's really not. So like I get that aspect of it, but
I think Roosevelt said, talk softly, but walk with a big stick.
Theodore Roosevelt.
Speak softly, but carry a big stick.
That's what we should have. That's what we should be.
Mm-hmm. I have to give credit though. Like I've always been impressed. Like there's a lot of things our government does really poorly. Our military is insane.
Oh,
that's the one thing that's a well-oiled machine. Like
it's
54% of the.
If we could have even partial the efficiency that the military has in some of these other sectors,
maybe so.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I just think to myself, like Ohio's unemployment website didn't work like half the time.
We have a website that we get off our jobs off of that. They can't even figure out how to do that.
We were sending people to the moon, like using code written in a book. And now we can't even run a damn website.
I know, it's bad. Even when the
disconnect between the contractors
Obamacare
and the government, right?
The Obamacare was just like, that was an absolute
how long was that down? I mean, that website.
It was down for a long time.
They had all kinds of time to get it up, and now they're dealing with like even voting issues, and I mean it's just all kinds of mess.
Would you see the whole mail-in voting, like how they all came out and they're all like, oh, it's not fraudulent, and then like literally the next day the articles popping up like 1 million fraudulent mail-in voters in New Jersey.
It's bad, man. It's almost like I don't know what to I almost don't trust anything anymore.
That's where
a lot of people are in your shoes.
If there was anyone that was like a cabal or something of pulling the strings, I feel like that's what you would want everyone to do is distrust everything. Because then you can pretty much do whatever.
Dissension is helpful. If you are trying to control dissensions is key. And there's a lot of dissension right now.
The media perpetuates it.
Especially after this whole COVID thing. Like communities like ours didn't really get hit at all. And now next time anyone comes out with anything like that, no one's going to do anything.
That's scary. Like if there's a disease that comes out even stronger and it kills more people, like people go, oh, it's nothing. Because we just locked down.
I don't even believe in COVID anymore, just because it's like you can have protests. But you can't go to church. You can't do that stuff. Like.
That was a problem for me. So obviously I believe in being respectful to the authorities, laws of the land. There's things in the Bible about that, but at the same time, it just seemed once they started arresting a pastor for like having church and things, they just started getting a little too 1984.
Big brother,
and arresting people for going out in the oceans. Probably the most healthiest thing you can probably do
by himself.
And
then there's
no one around,
and now they're having protests.
Would you see that? I think a place in West Virginia, they had a race for dirt track. I think they had 2,000 people show up, and they literally all the advertising, they had like signs at the event, like it's a protest. Like they literally just labeled it a protest. And like they didn't get in trouble at all just because they labeled it a protest.
I'm pretty sure in like New York they made a law where you're not allowed protesting unless you're protesting for Black Lives Matter.
Well, all the money,
the only thing you're allowed protesting.
All the money that all the money that's donated to Black Lives Matter goes straight to the Democratic Party. Too.
Really? You can follow. That's not a conspiracy. That's true. Like it's I don't remember the exact institution, but you can. I did read about it.
It goes straight to the Democratic Party.
That's sickening, man.
Yeah, and they're getting a lot right now.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people posting stuff like donate here. I'm thinking, if I donate, where would this go? Who's this helping? Like, it's not really a money.
Oh, dude, the funny
money doesn't help this issue.
Money at all.
Well, the funny thing was I started seeing, like, I read on I will browse 4chan and like 4chan, they were posting like, let's make people shave their heads for bald
You
for
sent
black
us that, yes.
for Black Lives Matter, and like literally people started doing it.
Yes.
It's
That's why I
very
shaved my
like
head.
everything happening is
That's why I shaved my head.
everything like that's happening right now is so hurtish.
Yeah.
very hurtish.
Yeah, it's.
I'm all for this protest, though, man. I think it's a valiant cause. That guy got killed unjustly. I don't think there should be reform. So I'm for
the
it.
The thing to me is like that's what they teach their like I could pull up their officer's handbook and there's a section about neck restraints.
You can do that,
and it's like if people were actually cared about it enough, they would read into all of this stuff happening and then reform it from there.
Yeah.
But it's like it's already happened and it was already a protocol for them. It's like.
Yeah.
Can you get mad at the? Don't get me wrong. Like I don't think people should be standing on someone's neck for 8 minutes.
Yeah.
and while
that one was excessive.
While already handcuffed and under control.
Yeah,
that one was definitely excessive.
We also had like fentanyl and everything in the system too.
Yeah.
He had a lot of stuff in the system. Yeah.
Which does not give the right to just stand on someone's neck for 9 minutes.
Yeah. It's
for 8 minutes, whatever.
Doesn't give you the right to kill somebody.
No.
I'm not a huge fan of like police authority or anything like that too. So I'm coming at it from a whole different like emotional standpoint.
Sure.
No one personally has the right to kill someone. Like,
no, right.
Depends. Like I feel like the only time that it actually is like is if it's like a giant majority. I guess like that's the only time it could. I guess you could somewhat defend it about taking a life.
Mm-hmm. This has been. I mean, I always try to be introspective in these moments, and there's definitely things like I have. Friends that black friends that I went to church with, and are amazing men, and they've even told me like a couple guys in school, D and Lonnie, and some of these guys, and they said, Josh, it is hard to explain. Like we sincerely do feel that if we could be wrongly, we get pulled over or we get stereotypes for everything. He goes, and we are all taught to be afraid for our children to a degree. And so I think there is a conversation there. The problem that I do have though is when people are obviously pandering and just trying to like kneeling to
virtue
the mob.
Signaling.
Yeah, virtue signaling. Like
you should not kneel to a mob.
I kneel to God only. Yeah, like personally. Like
there was one New York police department or policeman that came out and he said like I regret it kneeling for him.
Yeah,
it's a weird thing, right? Because there's a lot of pride there too.
Well, that's against America. America, we kneel to no one. This is America. You kneel to if you kneel to God and God alone. That's what America is built on.
You know, it's kind of like when you're talking about like the symbolism behind the books and all that stuff.
Sure.
Like you can read into that, and that's true, but also, you know, it calms people down. It makes you seem like you're together,
or it makes people think that they can do more. Because it's like a little kid. If you give them a little bit, you give them an inch.
But when you're talking about the police force, you should be able to do more. To me, you should be able to, when they're standing out there, if they're rioting, that's different. But if they're standing out there protesting,
you should be able to protest.
Yeah, and some people who are just peacefully protesting are getting pepper sprayed, flashbanged. I've seen tons of videos of just messed up stuff.
But that's the other problem is you're only seeing short snippets. You're not seeing the whole picture, and that's the point of like all the clips is to paint a wrong picture. That's what propaganda is.
Oh yeah,
I agree. I think there's things that I see that again you can't take a video by. So however, I do know there's still bad police officers, bad cops. You should be able to protest. But then I saw one today, I think it was in Miami. There's police officers driving and there's people jumping on their car, like punching it. And finally the dude jumps out and like 5 cops, then they're using force at that point and they're surprised. Like if I walked out right now and just jumped on a police officer's car and started punching, like he's going to physically restrain me.
If you do that to anybody's car.
Yeah. So, but with that said, like I think it's a very nuanced view. I don't think there's a black or white view here.
There never is.
And I didn't mean that by a pun. I mean literally,
I don't think there's much black and white in this world. Even though people want to hear black and white, there's always gray.
Yeah,
it's always gray.
Yeah.
It's never black.
I think there needs to be some change.
The reform I think there should be is take away victimless crimes. Like the war on drugs was pointless. It's like
wasting.
half the prisons literally, half the prisons are filled with victimless crimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think the biggest thing is like you hear people are saying like abolish the police, and it's like
that's crazy too.
5% of the population supports that, but they're doing it. They're doing it. Minneapolis just voted to completely.
We'll see what happens.
Well, you want to see what happens? You look back to I believe it was 1967 in Canada, a Canadian town. The police were fed up because people hated the police. They're like, "This is terrible." Like the police are hurting everyone. And the police are like, "All right, then we won't do our job." And I think they disbanded at 8 a.m. and by 10 a.m. the first bank was robbed, and then like by noon. A limo company or a cab company burned down a limo company just because they're competition. That's what happens. Is pure anarchy.
But
and whoever's the strongest.
Victimless crimes is the place to go.
Yeah, 100%.
I agree. It's the thing to cut out.
Now you said there should be change. I mean, what kind of change do you think? Because right now everyone's saying change, but no one is saying how to change.
What's the change?
What's the change?
And I definitely don't have.
Frustrating.
Absolutely, I definitely don't have a like an exact. I think it's more of a national consciousness of just love your fellow man. And I know that's not a law. You can't impose it on people. But I think that the sanctity of life. Now, don't get me wrong. Compared to history, we look at World War I. Like trench warfare, they're just like, hey, you all run at that trench and we're going to gain 5 feet and we're going to lose like 5,000 men just for 5 feet of land. It's like, so I think life does have more sanctity, but I just think it comes down, not to be kind of like a flowery here, but I think it comes down to just loving everyone, just regardless of who they are, like color, where they're from, like just and even me, I'll be honest, like when I see like even like liberal, and I'm not trying, I have friends that are, I'm just saying like the very soft, like everything's bad, like complaining loud, like
pessimistic.
Yeah. And then I have to check myself. I'm like, I try to remember their humanity. I actually have a Bible study I call Iron Counsel, based off Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron. And so anyways, like I was talking about that this morning and I was like, I feel like God prompted me. He's like, remember that person was made in my image. This is what I believe. And so I try to remember their humanity, and that helps me not be so frustrated with people that are different or annoying to me. And there's people that are ridiculous. I mean, I'm not, but I think it comes down to just each individual, teaching your kids, like.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that's gone.
Yeah.
There's no family. What is it? The nuclear family is gone.
Yeah. It's been destroyed.
Now, Hank, you asked me last night when we went out to dinner, what do you think about it? And you said, I think I know what you're thinking. I don't.
Well, you used to be a cop, so I'm sure.
Yeah, I used to be a cop. I think it could be very simple change, but I think it's the hardest way to change. I honestly believe that the only way we can change any of this is if people look to themselves and have know that, like, in a certain situation, how could I make a better decision to not end up in a bad situation? Fix yourself, accept yourself.
I don't think it's just you can put it all on yourself though, because it's
I'm not
a lot of it is just shitty leaders too. Like, because it's
I'm not saying
where's all this rioting and everything taking place?
Exactly, but everyone, that's why I believe everyone needs to fix themselves. Like, because everyone's blaming the cops. Like, that cop was bad. He was a dumb idea, but everyone's blaming the cops. No one's looking at themselves like, how could I have made a difference in that man's life, in that cop's life,
absolutely,
to make him not that way?
That's the only way you get
how could I have made a difference in George Floyd's life to make him not the way he was, and the cop's life? And how could have, if I'm not saying George Floyd, but as George Floyd, how could I have made a better decision to not end up in that situation, to get thrown on the ground or to get into any of it?
Yeah.
So
how could I have a cop
on his end though? It's a fine line, or on a lot of these people's end, it's. So if we're trying to avoid going to jail, for example, at what point do I do something that's not really wrong for humanity? It's not morally incorrect by like most people's standards, we'll say. but yet that still gets me locked up or still gets me in a terrible position, even though I didn't do anything wrong.
There shouldn't be a law.
Exactly. Yeah. But there are laws and there are things that are exposed. There's
That's the problem. That's what I mean. The reform that needs to take place is less government, less restrictions, less regulation, less things, less of a nanny state. Because half of this, people have no need to build themselves. Like when you can go to get your food and do everything else paid for you, why? Your brain's always going to take the easiest route, 100%. I think it was
for people to take it to themselves to become a better person. Sometimes as a people, as Americans, we do need to rise up and check them. Because they will take more and more and more until there's nothing left. And I want to be free. I want to be ultimately free. I don't want to hurt anybody. But I do want to be as free as I can be.
You got to go to a point until it's like you have to stand up to your right. You got to stand up somehow.
And I think that's what all this is.
And get on the ground and let yourself get kicked.
I'm good with standing up for what you believe in. I'm good with protesting. I'm fine. I mean, that's your God-given right to do that. But I'm saying, like, if people fix themselves and accept themselves, none of this would have probably happened. If people believe,
the people in charge, everybody was, but that's just not how people are. I mean,
that's why I believe it's not going to happen.
Inherently, I think humans are greedy.
That is the way things are going to change, because there's always going to be bad in this world. Always going to be bad unless people do that, and I don't believe it's going to happen.
Well, the other thing about it is human nature is inherently in a state of conflict. That's what humans have always existed at. Like they always were in some type of conflict, and it's only. And I think like there's a big theory about how it's like conflict is right now is in a 50-year cycle. How it's like you can only bottle up everyone's conflict so much. Before they have to release it, because we're all just apes, really. Still, like we're all pretty animalistic. Like we all just ran on emotions.
I think it kind of because I actually, again, it's the nuance. I hear what both of you are saying. And I know for me, the only thing that I can control 100% is me. And I think the things I want to do is I want to genuinely care about all people. Also I think as a man, I think that Jordan Peterson, you guys
love Jordan Peterson.
He's awesome. He has a thing on YouTube I'd highly recommend. It's called basically if you Google a good man is a dangerous man. Like, and basically he says there's no, like, every man that's a good man, you need to be dangerous. And what he means by that is you have to push yourself, your mind, when the moment you're pushing, is that it?
A harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very dangerous man who is that under voluntary control.
Yeah. And
it's like stoic. Yeah.
It's like virtue. It's generally, it's about the Greece. It's about virtue. And by that, like you can harness that power and you make yourselves better. Because I think when you actually push yourself, it actually humbles you. When the stronger you become and you become a powerful person, it makes you more humble and more caring for others. It's kind of a dichotomy. You become more dangerous, but you become safer to be around.
Usually it's because you experience it. It's like you experience the suffering, so you realize where they're coming from.
Because we have empathy.
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
And I think even like with the George Floyd thing, and this is a hard conversation, but like being handcuffed behind his back, like I've been in situations and like I just got locked in a box for this thing, but that way self was tough. I can't imagine, the like hands tied to your head and back and someone's sitting on your neck, like how scary that's got to be. Like that part actually, and George Floyd was not a great citizen, but I don't wish that on anybody.
Be in the spot.
Yeah, they should have, and that bothers me. It does, and I think, and I can speak up on that, but also can not like. I think it's stupid that like you cede your moral high ground the moment you start looting Louis Vuitton.
100%.
Like
there's definitely, those guys have no excuse.
It's nonsense. But like I think both sides can come to the table. I don't think there's two sides either. I don't think there's one side and this side.
There is
not black and white.
There isn't.
No, it's not binary.
No, I think we're together in this and we're all trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it's a hard conversation. Like literally, I'm on the podcast like after one of the hardest things is hit America. Wow, so that's a tough situation to talk about and tread it. Like we'll have this conversation, and the way that the world is right now, we could be deemed XYZ labeled and considered even potentially racist. Just one thing you say now,
because that's the problem. We're at the point where Marxists or whatever have so much control over the PC culture where it's like you can't talk about certain ideas without being shunned or whatever.
Yeah, there's plenty of those.
Like Drew Brees, like if you actually read what he said,
insane.
like there's nothing bad
people
about
are just
it
going
at all.
off of a picture they see and then like not really reading into it at all. They're just seeing a superficial view.
Also, we might have some biases because we are 4 white guys.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to acknowledge your bias.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think any of us are far off from the reality of it. Saying George Floyd was not a great person, some people would fire up.
Yeah. Well, you can go the opposite way too, and it's like they have a bias on the other end if you're not. Like,
you have to. Everyone has, no matter what you say, everyone has a bias, and you have to acknowledge it. I know that. I know that I'm not by any means perfect. I literally would. I just love it. There's not one thing that bothers me with any color, race, something like that. It really, however, the thing that you have to look for is my uncle's a police officer in Tampa, and he says that, and predominantly, these are just the statistics. He said in Tampa, it was like 80% of the shootings was African American. He just went on, and he's like, and I could not. He actually got out of it. He's actually a pastor now because it was making him jaded, like, and he's like, because you just see the worst of humanity.
Jacob, you were getting like that. You were in the forest. You were getting a little jaded.
Got that?
Oh, yeah, because you only see the bad apples.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of makes you. How did that affect you, Jacob? I mean, that's.
Oh, I mean, I've talked about this before, but I mean, I would go home and I would literally just go straight to the TV. I wouldn't even talk to really Emma at all, and I just would just drown myself out. And I got home and I went to work. Came back, did the same thing, just was a cycle, and I was pissed off when I came in, pissed off when I came out, and I was just like, I can't do this. I can't be pissed off, and did not want to go back to work.
How do we do that as a society then? Like, obviously law and order is essential to society. Anarchy will never work. So why would anyone be a police officer right now? Like, oh,
it's tough.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of cops that do become police officers and stay do it for the authority.
Gotcha.
And so now you have this weird.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are thinking like, how do we fix that? And a lot of people are saying more schooling, more training. But the problem with those is it doesn't change their heart and mind. Yeah. You have to change the heart.
Well, why do people even have the thought to, I'm going to join the police because I'll have more authority? Do
you think that's
because the only reason is because they've been given the power to have more authority? Yeah.
What is it?
Do you think that's even accurate that some cops that stay cops for a long time, or even many cops, do it for authority because they have the power?
Absolutely. Okay. Cops, there are bad people out in this world, and unfortunately,
you can't catch them.
The cops are always in the forefront of the bad. That's just going to happen. They're always in the forefront. That's why you see so much cop brutality. It's just people brutality. They're just always in the forefront. I mean, they're just going to be on the north.
Wild situations.
They're always in it. Yeah. Bad people are always doing bad things everywhere and every time. It's just they're always on the forefront. And I'm not. There are bad cops out there. There are.
But I personally believe that there are more good.
Oh, absolutely.
Cops
there's a lot more good people. I think there are a lot,
but I think
there's a lot more good people.
It goes back to your view of humanity.
And it comes down to what your view is like good and bad is. Anytime I get pulled over, I'm thinking this asshole pulled me over for no reason.
Sure.
I wasn't doing anything wrong. But now, if I had like anything on me, they could search my car and I'd go to jail for doing nothing.
And that's the authority they were given.
It is their authority to given. But also, we should probably go back to the lawmakers who created that law to be like, hey, we shouldn't do that.
But it is the cop's choice. Let's say I had a couple drinks and I made it. I've heard of people making it home. They're in their driveway and the cop pulls them behind them and they get a DUI. They made it home. But I've also heard of stories where
you're going to hear the worst stories too. The most.
Yeah. I've also heard stories where a cop did pull someone over who was drunk and he's like, hey, I know you're drunk. Go home. Go down, get a Rex, kill somebody.
Oh yeah, I bet that almost never happens.
It is so hard. That's why it's gray. It's so hard to.
That's why you let it all go. You let it all go. You're better to let 100 innocent people live. 100 guilty people to live than one innocent man die.
Yeah,
maybe so.
That's what our legal system is based off of.
It's
the
going
core
the other
of it.
way though.
But yeah, it's the power. It's like we'll reform, take away power.
Yeah.
And then it's like that's the baffling thing to me is like where does all of the problems we're talking about stem from? It's having the authority to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Like
I think if you go ahead. I was going to say I think maybe if you take a farther back look at maybe an introspective look of what your thoughts towards the police, I think that's a microcosm of how you believe humanity is. And if the old Hobbes versus Locke, English philosophers, and Hobbes believed more that man was generally good. Locke wrote the Leviathan, right? Is it Locke wrote the Leviathan? And he believed that man was inherently evil. And so where do you fall on that spectrum? That's the question, because
it's a toss-up.
Yeah.
So I think we're both.
Yeah, I don't think
I think it's like yin and yang. You have chaos and order.
Sigmund Freud said, he said that all humans have that animalistic characteristic in them, that they can go in that dark place. If something bad happens, they can go in that switch and they're bad.
Because I see it in animals. Like if you corner a coon, the coon will do anything to get out of the corner. Like it will bite through whatever you have in front of it.
Yeah.
But if they have open ground, they'll just run. They're not going to attack you or anything.
Yeah. And I know this is kind of going off left field, but I think as a man, I think that's good to be in contact with that, that primal. I think that's part of who we are. Like,
you got to know it so you don't it's not just catches you off guard.
Yeah, but it should never be used on.
Exactly.
Ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not a question.
Because it's like the people just don't experience anger and they let out rage because they've never.
They just snap one day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's. I think it was Mike Rowe, the Dirty Jobs guy. He always says there's too much safety in this world.
100%. Yeah.
That people don't know the bad.
Right.
And when they see bad, they're like, it's terrible.
But
it's terrible.
You want society to be safe. Like I get that. Utopia idea, but
you'll give up
anything safe takes away freedom.
What
is Ben Franklin quote? Safety. If you give up safety, you'll lose liberty. And
you said it. You said it. The road to hell is paved.
Oh yeah, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Like that's what I've always started to really think about. Whenever these things pass, is like they have good intentions, like they're benefiting the greater good, whatever. But let's be logical about it.
And Josh, you might even have a different angle on this being a parent.
Yeah,
The future of the world is in your hands, and you have this.
Yeah, I actually one thing I was going to ask you guys what your thoughts are, but with all this that's happened, I mean, we do not know yet. We're still in the midst of it. How this is going to affect us with the ripple effects, the concentric circles that we're going to have 5, 10, 15 years. Like how. I want even our civil liberties, like as far as the government, I do believe there's people who don't care about that claim to care about equality and George Floyd that don't, and they're just using that to, like you said, to gain power. You want freedom. I agree with that. And I think there's, from all sides, there's people trying to take more and more of that. Like how much of our civil liberties potentially has eroded as far as the government getting more power in that pendulum, and we don't know it yet. And I'm not a tinfoil hat guy, but I mean, just with COVID, they were shutting down. They were doing all the things, shutting down churches, and now we have these riots. How much of our liberties have been eroded, and we don't even know it right now? I wonder.
They're having curfews.
Yeah,
and if you're out on the street past 10 o'clock in Columbus, you get arrested.
Yeah,
well, don't even get me started, because we are a socialist country currently. We have a planned economy. The government is choosing which businesses fail, which ones don't.
Yep. In the form of bailouts.
That is a planned economy.
That is not laissez-faire. That's what I was looking for earlier.
Laissez-faire.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and it like, because they're afraid. I mean, airlines. What do you get? Like, how if an airline fails?
How are you gonna fly places?
Is it going to cripple? Like, that's a conversation to have.
We have like Japan right now. Japan they've bailed out their companies so much that they're called zombie corporations, where they just literally are just sucking money, taxpayer money. Yeah. I think Japan has like a 240 debt to GDP ratio, meaning like they have 240% more debt than they make every year.
They're in a
They're going in a world where we're going to.
Yeah, we're at 26 trillion. Just last I looked.
Well, we're in I think we're at around 150 trillion in unobligated
and with that much
funds.
debt, and the American dollar is still the most powerful spending material in the entire world.
Well, it's
because everyone else is doing worse.
No. It's because all of the debt taken out of the world, all the debt people have taken, all these countries, they've taken the debt out. They've taken it out. The debt has to be paid back with dollars. Who has all the dollars and who prints all the dollars? The U.S. Yeah. Who creates, if they create weird scarcity systems on the dollar.
It's going to create a lot of tension, and I'm not excited to see where it leads.
Called Keynesian. It's Keynesian economics at its finest.
If you look at history, where does this stuff lead? It always leads to war. It just leads to more anger, more pissed off people, more angry. They're desperate. You back them into a corner.
I don't want to go to war for their mistakes.
Right.
Yeah. Oh no, I don't either.
I'm not spending my life because I'm not in power because some dude spent too much bailing out GM because some dude spends too much bailing out the airlines.
That's the problem. The government is the problem. Yeah. And I'm not saying rebel, whatever. I'm saying it's just like elect people that have it's all about we have the power. It's like elect people that say we are going to stop, we are going to roll back regulations.
But some of them do say it and they don't.
They don't.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Then we have to figure out how to hold them accountable.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing. And that's why I kind of ascribe to more of a conservative, I guess, on the political ideological spectrum is because I do like less government. I don't mind, and this is not a conservative viewpoint, I don't mind a safety net for families. Like, I'll be honest, I grew up, when I was young, I lived in trailer park, I lived in projects, parents were on food stamps, my dad worked every single day, and that helped us. That helped us a lot. So I think there's things good. I think there's also abuse, but I don't think you can ever get rid of abuse. But I still, even with those viewpoints, I think you can still have a nuanced view, but I still don't want the government. I don't want them in my life.
Yeah, they shouldn't be they shouldn't be parent. They shouldn't be a nanny. And that's what we're at. It's like they're a nanny state. Yeah. We're in a nanny state. It's like we can't do these certain. Look at all of the innovation that the government has stifled. Like, we have not. The reason why there's no innovation, it's because you're not allowed to. It's like you can't.
No self-driving cars right now today.
Yeah. It's like why can't you make a plane that goes Mach 20? It's because they banned any plane that's supersonic in the 70s.
Did they really?
Yeah,
they shatter windows and they go
what?
The speed of sound.
Which they only do that if they're low enough to the earth.
Yeah,
the sonic boom.
Mm-hmm. And there was a one plane that was like it.
Well, case in point, look what Elon Musk just did. I mean, NASA. We've not been back. They canceled the space. What was the like 5-6 years ago? The NASA canceled.
Obama canceled it.
The space shuttle.
Yeah,
shuttle.
And so, but now it's who's going to get there now first? It's going to be private. Privately owned companies. And so I think, like you said, innovation dies in the government, typically.
They must have some wicked legal team over at SpaceX and Elon Musk companies in general.
Or it's because we have Trump. Trump's just like, we have to have something to get behind. And every president before us has always made these stupid promises that's like, Nixon's like, oh, we're going to end poverty. And it's like, okay, that was the last promise that was the first promise that was not like actually fulfilled by a president. Because JFK said, we're going to the moon by the end of the by the 1970. They did.
Yeah.
And then Nixon said, we're going to end the war, end the poverty. And it's like, nope.
Yeah.
And every president after that, they get these crappy promises and nothing where the Americans can't get behind it all.
A lot of them still get reelected.
Yeah.
Trump's probably going to get, I would bet on it. I'm not behind it, but what are the Democrats doing, man? I don't know. That's a different discussion, but Jesus Christ.
You guys want to take a break?
Yeah, we can take a break here.
All right. We're back.
All right. Now you
into it already.
You said something about being in a box, and you were telling me a little bit about your. Was last week you went to this?
Yes.
So why don't you told me a little bit about it, but why don't you tell us a little bit about what the heck you just went through?
All right. So, one thing, and I was telling Jay before I came on the podcast, one thing that's hard for me to do is talk about myself, but he's like, no, that's exactly what you have to do because that's the whole point of the podcast. So, so by nature, it's not something I like to do. But anyways, again, I believe that I think men and women, but as a man especially kind of that Fight Club thing, if you're just doing the corporate thing day to day, like you get dull. Like you need something that is pushing you. I think men, we need challenge. If everything's easy, you just get soft. Personally.
No pain, no gain.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not, I'm not talking about physically necessarily. I think it's more mental.
Oh yeah.
Spiritual than physical, but physicality comes. But, so anyways, there's a guy named Dr. Reynolds, Tim Reynolds. This guy is he almost seems like a fiction. Like you just make this guy up. So he was in the Green Berets for 18 years. He's a combat medic. He gets out. He becomes a surgeon. I don't know his whole story, but just now he owns a place called Healthcare Express. It's like in 5 different states in Texas and Arkansas, Louisiana. Hundreds and hundreds of employees. I mean, he's killing it financially, multi-millionaire. He has his own private jet. He's got a real estate thing going. But even at the end of the day, he's still a teacher, and he just thinks that he always says he believes this generation's men have been neutered. He says, and maybe popular or not, he says it's because of porn and video games is his opinion. Yeah,
I agree with that somewhat.
Well, not another tangent, but just a quick example is Think Rich, Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill. There's a chapter in there called the sexual transmutation. Super weird sounding chapter, right? But he actually says he completely agrees. He believes that men have this like virility in them that they need to use this energy, but men end up wasting it in their years, and especially their years when you're supposed to be going after things, achieving. They waste it laying around watching porn, and then they have no energy because they're just. He's like, you're supposed to be getting after it right now. You're supposed to be building your empire, but instead you're on Pornhub. So he's like, you need to transmute that sexual energy and do something with it. Don't waste it on video time and he be a simp, as he said. But anyway, so he's really hardcore, right? So he brings this in. He doesn't make money on it, and it's called Gladiator. So I first heard about it, and a couple of years ago, and I was the first class. I got through class Alpha, and we went through. We did obstacle courses, like the obstacle courses almost sounds easy. It was a very big challenge. But to fast forward, what I just did, what Jacob referenced, was Advanced Gladiator. Again, I was fortunate to be the first one, first class. There was 11 of us. And some of the stuff that we had to do was insane. Like it was challenging. I'll be honest, I was scared. At one point, he ties your hands behind your back, ties your feet together.
Oh, so it was physical too.
Physical and mental. And there was classroom time as well. He actually did finance, and he's not a sadist or masochist. Like everything has a purpose. But we have to go into a pool, but way above here, like 10 feet, and your hands are behind your back, and you're tied together, and there's a weight around you, and you have to basically survive in the water for 3 minutes. And it's a scary feeling because you can't swim, so you have to bob. You have to get to the bottom, and it's all about staying calm. I was scared, man. Like you're on the edge, and you're about to get pushed into a pool, and your hands are tied behind your back and around your feet. Like
so, you're sinking to the bottom.
Yeah,
jumping off the bottom.
Catch your breath. Yeah, and I found a rhythm. So you have to go down and stay calm, and it's hard to explain, man. Like if you're constrained in water, it's like if he wasn't there, like I wouldn't drown. I mean, I could do it. But so for 3, it actually becomes easy once you figure the rhythm. But at first, man, it's about facing your fears. But the box thing. So one night, I don't want to tell all. By the time the your listeners here, maybe they'll go through this, but I think they end up being a part of this. It's pretty awesome. He's actually wanting to expand it nationally. But he one night he has us go out and do a survival thing. So we didn't know it was coming. We weren't prepared, and that was part of it. He gives us a coordinate. Says go find. It was hundreds and hundreds of acres, and he gives us coordinates. Says find this cache. If you don't find it, that's your fault. And then I'll come pick you up at 6:30 in the morning or so. So you go there. There were some things that happened through the night, and you don't get a lot of sleep. I think I got like 2.5 hours of sleep, and that's based after a day where I was exhausted. Like we were doing all kinds of stuff. Next morning, he drives up. He checks this, he makes sure fire out and all that stuff, and he's like, "All right, get in the truck." He puts a zip tie around your arms. He blindfolds you, and this is based off of. And I want to be clear. This isn't. People are probably like some people who have no idea. Think it sounds really weird. There's something called SEER training. You guys, Jake, you've heard of that?
I know exactly SEER training because I wanted to do it for a while.
Okay, yeah, it's something the military, especially special forces, do. And there was a retired sergeant major in E9, which is high as you go enlisted. He was also Green Berets. So these are like special forces, hardcore guys, and they both went through this. It's like search, evasion, rescue.
Yeah, search. survival, evasion, resistance, and escape.
Exactly. There you go. And so the survival, and they modeled after stuff they really did. So this isn't stuff they just made up. This is real stuff that the special forces do. So and we weren't expecting this, but anyways, he comes and gets us, blindfolds us. It's raining. We're in mud, like sitting down. This is the easy part. Like they're kicking mud in your face. You're like laying. He's like lay down face, and he starts doing a Russian accent. And the night before he came up to me. He had no idea what he was going to say. He goes, the Gladiator Jeep has a 350 engine. And I'm like, what? He's like, tell no one. I had no idea what. I was like, okay. Like I had no clue. Well, the next day he's like, you guys were told something yesterday. I need to know what it is. And he's like, tell me right now, you can have a hot shower, you can have food. And obviously, you can't tell, right? So like you're there with your guys, but you're laying down in the mud and it's for like an hour. It's like laying down and you can't, at times you have to get out of the mud pole, you can't breathe. Finally he takes us back, he drives us around the back of his truck. It's freezing. Like some people are starting to like, you can hear them chattering, their teeth chattering. Then he takes us to a place that's like a barn or something. And again, I've not seen light in about an hour now. So, and he turns on extremely loud music. It's like babies crying, women screaming, guns shooting, like just loud death metal. And just randomly come up behind you, like kick, smack, pour ice cold water on you. And it's frigid. You're freezing. It's been 2 hours, and he's like, just tell us what we need to know. Like he's in character too. And he's not the only one.
Did anyone break?
Surprisingly, no. We had an awesome.
You guys are hard asses.
We had some awesome.
No one wants to be the pussy there.
Yeah. But the hard part, and there's probably people listening like, why would you do that? I would do it again. He takes me over and he's like, tell me what you need right now, Josh. I'll let you out right now. And I'm silent. He's like, okay, tough guy. And he says, get in the box. And I'm like, oh, great. Like I know, and I can't see anything, guys. Again, it's been like 2 hours. Like it starts being weird. That's very common in like interrogation. Like they will turn music on, sensory overload. But get in the box, and this is probably the only moment that I'll be honest that for a moment, I wanted to panic because I can feel the box on my shoulders. You're kneeling down. He closes it. You hear the lock. You're locked in a box. And then you start hearing the nails and the hammer.
And you haven't slept at all.
You haven't slept but 2 hours. And the day before, and they're pouring ice cold water on you. And I'll be honest, I had to focus. There's a book by Mark Divine called The Unbeatable Mind I read like 4 years ago, and ironically, that's what helped me in that book because I remember he taught something called box breathing. And I do that in stressful boardrooms. Like it's where you breathe, you exhale slowly for 4 seconds. At the bottom of it, you hold it 4 seconds.
I do this too.
It's huge.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
They taught that
Holy cow.
It
I
slows
watched
your heart
the
rate.
SEAL guy talk about it.
Yeah, that's Mark Divine. That's probably
that was him. Man.
Yeah.
Because I remember hearing him about it. I was like, holy cow.
Yeah. I'll be honest, because for a second, man, I just had the urge to start kicking the box. Like I wanted to break out because I was fine in there. I could breathe. You don't have your freedom's gone. It's a weird thought. So, but after I just started doing the breathing. I was like, I was almost nauseous for about 5. I'm not claustrophobic per se, but that moment I felt that way. And then after about 20 seconds, I started catching myself, my 30 seconds, and then I could have stayed in there for like an hour. Like I just kind of got in my happy place but yeah, that's.
So what's the breathing method?
It's called box breathing. So what you do, and just the backstory that Mark gave, and he said he was in the SEAL team, he was in a submarine or something, and his goggles the goggles they wear aren't like swimmer goggles. They go over your nose as well. So it went into his nose and he could not see, and he was supposed to be like the spotter or something. And he said his heart rate started going through the roof, adrenaline pumping. So the whole point is like a physiological response, and you just control your breathing. And so you exhale for 4 seconds. At the bottom of your exhale, you hold it 4 seconds. Then you inhale for 4 seconds, and then you hold it, the inhale for 4 seconds, and you repeat that process. That's it. You could do 4 or 5 seconds.
When you hyperventilate, you're forcing oxygen to everywhere.
Yeah.
So like your body's naturally just going to be
you're like resetting.
Yeah.
It's
like
it works.
You can control your breathing, but you can't control some of the
exactly. And that's what after we did an action we always did an after action report review, and he's like, what's the one? And that was my comment. I was like, I could control my breathing. I couldn't control what you put me in a box and all this stuff, but I could control my breathing. He's like, exactly. He's like, you got to find things you can control, and that was one of the whole points of that whole thing is a mental exercise. But that was just a couple things we did. It was very physical, but man, I would do it again.
It sounds fun. It's weird. Just like you said, like people think like, why the hell would you do that? It honestly sounds
all into stuff like that.
I'm
not about it, boys. I'm too hedonistic hedonistic for that stuff.
You too what?
Hedonistic.
Oh, hedonistic.
Yeah, I like pleasure. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
it's weird because it brings me a pleasure.
I mean, look at us.
Testing myself.
Right, you guys are all guys who work out. You're all jacked. I'm not working out. I couldn't give a hoot about that. I like reading.
Yeah.
I like philosophy. I like talking about stuff like that.
That's awesome though.
But see, like if you go through that, the pleasure is afterward. That's where I get my pleasure. Like, man, I did that. God,
I just like
feels good.
Testing myself, to be honest. That's what I would like.
Yeah. That was the thing. And there was some guys in our class, like, because I think the term alpha is a little silly with guys, because some guys every guy that calls themselves an alpha is definitely not. But if you're claiming you are, then you already are not. But there was some guys that that weren't, one dude was a lawyer. He's like a 44-year-old lawyer. One guy, the oldest guy in our group, man, such an awesome guy. He's a businessman out of Wisconsin, and he's 60 something. He's built like a linebacker, like he's huge, but man, he was there doing it. Like he trained, like he had been sending videos, just getting primal, like he doing pull-ups with like with a rucksack on. Because everywhere we had to go the whole week, we always had at least 50 pounds, but it always ended up being like well over 60. And we're having to hold, like, you guys are familiar with the Special Forces. They use the Zodiacs, those boats, those inflated boats.
Oh yeah, Yep.
At one point we had rugged for a while, and like literally, I don't know how many bugs I ate because we had our headlamps on at night, and then we get to the Zodiac, and we didn't know it was there, and Instructor Reynolds was like, grab it, go. So you're holding it, and it's 322 pounds on top, and so we're 6 of us, and then we get to the river or the lake, and he's like, you got to get across ASAP, and so rowing is also. It was awesome, man. But you sleep. That sleep is the sweetest sleep you'll ever have, man.
Did you make a good bond with a lot of people on your team?
The relationships, dudes were literally saying like guys that I knew for like 2 days were like, love you. Like, and that sounds weird, but like you just go through so much crap. Like it's not like war. I'm not claiming, like, those guys have a deep bond.
That's what they train people to go to war for.
Yeah.
Experience is what, like, I feel like bonds men together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Experience, like something you just had to, like, something experience.
You go through it together.
Exactly. Yeah.
Each other's back, and people, no one broke. And honestly, when you're doing things, you're not worried about failing yourself. You're worried about failing the other guys. Like when I got put in the water, I just didn't want to. It wasn't so much for myself. I didn't want to fail those guys, and they wouldn't have cared. But I didn't want to fail. It's weird how that works.
Well, it's just like being on a track team. That's what I always remember.
Yeah,
it's like you're all there. You're struggling together, but some of those guys are my best friends.
Yeah,
me and Frank became friends during track.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just in there running in circles. It sucks. It's like torture, kind of. You're just training the body.
Exactly. You gotta beat the body into submission.
Same thing with football or any of those sports.
Absolutely.
You're just in there grinding and going through it together.
Well, I feel like those situations where you're forced to, like, put trust into other people, that's where it's just like everyone's true character.
They come through and you just...
Yeah. And there's guys that, I'll be honest, like physically, I did really well on the most of the things, like I've trained, like strength is something but I wasn't the greatest swimmer. Like I can swim, but like one point we had to swim across the lake with our 50-pound ruck, and I was struggling, man. I was struggling because I'm already like, I'm not the tallest guy, and I'm a little dense, and so I want to sink naturally, plus holding that 60, 50 pound. And so it was cool seeing, I had my strengths and I had my weaknesses, but then someone else that was a great swimmer, wasn't as strong or whatever. So it was really cool like that. I think that's huge because you can't do it all. You can't be the greatest at everything.
That's a good reflection of life in general.
Yeah.
Especially in a company or anything like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you again, that's what I think. Hubris and pride is one of the greatest killers of men. Like, and I don't mean killers like literally, but figuratively. Like, and you need to be confident. But I believe that true wisdom comes. The more wisdom that I feel like I've gained is, first of all, the more question I am of things. I don't believe everything I hear off the bat. But number two is I'm a lot less judgmental of others, because I'm like, I try to empathize. Like, what are they saying? What are they? What have they went through before I'm just quick to say this guy's a moron or whatever. I think that's important for us.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah,
try to find the qualities in that person.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I think a lot of those like simple little proverbs have been like.
Oh yeah,
dude, I like to
sticks and stones.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
Josh, you telling your kids stuff like that all the time, like these little proverbs? I would try to at least.
I tell them things all the time, like
sticks in there.
Yeah, one thing is. Rule number 1 is life's not fair. Rule number 2 is you can't change rule number 1. I tell that to my boy all the time. Like, And it's true, like, because you don't make excuses. Like, you can't complain. Like, yesterday, the perfect example, I have a 7-year-old. He is the most, and I'm not just saying he's my kid. Like, I've never seen him ever do one. Like, he is so caring. And my thing is, as a father, I'm trying to help him with is he's very sensitive. But I don't want to take that out of him. But I also got to make sure that he also has sensitivity, and I want him to be able to be.
Because sensitivity is exploitive.
Yes,
that's
exactly. I want him to, and he could be hurt easily. I want him to be, he's only a boy right now. I'm not expecting to be a man, but I'm trying. So that's what I'm trying to like encourage him. So he went with a ruck with me. So I like to ruck at least once a week. It's just awesome for you. And so he goes, and that day right before, my wife calls me and says, "Hey, we can't come," because she was going to come with me like her first time. She wanted. I was like, "Yeah, let's all do it." And I was like, "Why?" And she's like, "Samuel got hurt." And one of his cousins didn't mean to, but threw a dinosaur, like a triceratops, big thing. He literally had it like literally penetrated right beside his eye, and both like and he was bleeding pretty badly. And I was like, no, he needs to come. And he was like crying, and I was like, he needs this. Like, as a boy, he needs this. Like, he just got hurt, he needs this. So she comes, and his spirits were so high. Like, he was like leading the pack. He was like doing push-ups and stuff. But like, I feel like if I would have said, okay, you can stay home, like, that's not what he needs right now. Like, he needed to be able to push himself to start learning those moments, and he did fine. Like, yeah, so
no pain, no gain.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like as a parent, it might be a weird balance, though. I mean, I don't have any experience doing it, but like, you don't want your kid in the future to resent you for making them do something that they really didn't want to do. Yeah,
and you're 100% right. I think that comes with how you present the situation. Like, he is so. I literally can do no wrong in his mind, and I'm tooting my own horn. Like, there's a lot of great parents there. I'm very loving to him, encouraging. I never tell him that. I never speak down to him. And again, when I get home, like, he's by me the whole time. Like, I'm his world right now. And so just because of the love I give him, he wants to be like me, and he wants to impress me. And he knows the things that impress me is like, I personally push myself in areas. So he wants to push himself. So I notice him, and I try to
a role model.
Yeah,
you're a role model. You want to be a role model.
And you hold your end of the deal.
Exactly. Yeah,
you're not being hypocritical.
Yeah.
You're living it.
Oh yeah, I always hate when people are like, they live through their kids, like they're putting them through like their hardcore AAU basketball, and they're doing summer camps, and they wait. This might be kind of I don't know how much to say on here, but like they're they don't do anything. They're overweight. They just they eat junk food all the time, and like they do no exercise. But their kid, they will like push.
Well, here's the thing,
I can't stand that.
Do we have prodigies then? Because I feel like look at Serena Williams. Serena Williams is so good because her dad made her play tennis all the time.
Here's the thing, though. She respects her father because he actually did.
That's true. You're very right.
I think it's okay to do those if the kid likes it and they're not being exploited.
You got to hold your end of the deal.
But when you're living vicariously through it, I get what you mean.
It's leading from the front.
Yes.
And that was what Gates of Fire was like. Leonidas led from the front.
Absolutely.
He was in the middle and the front the whole time.
That's like every leader. Alexander the Great rolled in.
I'm looking up to him, but he's up front. I'm going to go with him.
Exactly.
It was like Alexander's great speech was like, I will run into battle by myself, and if you guys don't want to join me, then I will go to death.
Like, absolutely. The book I'm reading, I was telling you earlier, that Lion's Den book, like the chapter I just read, this dude was literally running into buildings with snipers in there because his men were shell-shocked, and he was like, he yelled and they didn't listen, so he ran in, and he didn't wait, and once he got in, they're like, oh, they came too, and they all run in after him. Like, that's a leader right there. I can respect that. But yeah, I think that's the key difference there is you have to lead from the front 100%.
Yeah.
Your kids, they'll see it. If you're being a hypocrite, they'll have no respect for you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's just a hard thing to uphold,
Yeah.
especially when you work all day. I mean, I'm sure you're just stressed to the max with work. It takes a lot of energy. You got to come in and do it all the time.
It does.
Like I remember watching my dad come home from work and being tired.
Yeah.
You know,
it's two things I think help me. Again, I everything I go back to is my faith. Not perfect. That helps me a lot. And number two is I actually am intentional about planning. Like I used to think everything to be spontaneous when it came to relationships, but like I wake up early, and part of my plan, like I have a morning routine, but part of my plan is I plan my day, and I'll actually literally read to boys, and then I'll pick a time like in the afternoon, or in the evening, because if I don't do that, it's not that I don't love them or don't care about them, but I'm tired, like you said. I just want to chill out or relax or read or or whatever, if I don't plan that intentionally, I sometimes miss it. So I think you have to be very intentional.
I do a similar thing. I plan things that could be spontaneous.
Yeah.
Wishing people a happy birthday.
Yeah.
I have a list of people, and unless I somehow miss it, I pride myself in calling people and wishing them a happy birthday.
And they don't care. Like, if you tell them a birthday, they're not like, oh, he planned that. Like, that doesn't mean anything. Like, of course not. They're just like, man, I'm glad to hear from you. Thank you.
And things like that all the time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Now, you said you have a schedule throughout. Like, what is your schedule? Like, when you wake up, like, what time do you wake up?
Yeah.
What is your schedule?
For some reason, I don't know why, I'm obsessed. Okay, that might be a strong word, but I really, really love hearing people's morning routines. I've listened, especially people who are successful, and they're all different. But mine particularly is I get up at 4:15 in the morning. I don't have to go to work till 7:30. So I've got 3 hours and 15 minutes to get to work, and I've got a 10-minute commute. I'm blessed in that regard. So I've got a ton of time in the morning. And so get at 4:15, of course, the coffee. I do something. There's a book called 3 Minutes to Pain-Free Life written by PhD Dr. Weissman. And he gives you these stretches, and he posits that over time that as humans, we are not meant to sit all the time. There's actually a Harvard article called Sitting is the New Smoking. Yeah. It's really bad for you overall. And he's like, you can get the most ergonomical chair in the world. It'll help a little bit. But at the end of the day, he's like, I'm not telling you can't sit. But if you think about it, you wake up, you're sitting on your couch, you go to work. Even if you work out, that's an hour, 30, 45 minutes, whatever. You go to work, you're typically, for some Americans, I know there's people saying, no, you're sitting down all day, then you get in your car and you drive back and you're sitting down, and then you get home and you're sitting down. And over time, it causes a lot of health issues. So he gives this stretch, and it's a really good book. I'd highly recommend it, and just for those stretches. So I do that. But the big thing is, the first thing I do is I actually I read through the Bible every year. So I read that. It's it's Old Testament, New Testament, a proverb, and then like a psalm.
So do you map it out so that you finish it within the year? Yeah.
I actually go online, and there's an app called YouVersion, and they actually have 1 year Bibles that they break them out in different ways. And currently, I'm reading out of Jeremiah and stuff. And that's the only thing I read out loud, because you can read, if you read out loud, you read slower. Like, you can't read near as fast. But I think I can pick it up more, because you got to slow down. So that takes me a few minutes, 30 minutes or so. And then the biggest thing for me is that journal. And when I say journal, I mean I plan my day.
And you have a hard copy.
A hard copy, yeah. I have a hard copy, and it's like I want it to look cool. I have a cool brown leather cover on. I can replace the inside, but I go over health, wealth, mastery, contribution, family, and I don't always hit everything. There's also usually a question of the day, and I have a part of it, so what I'm grateful for that day. And these are like quick things, like I have my family come out. I'm grateful I get to see my family tomorrow. Like, I think it's hard to be whining when you find things you're grateful for.
It sets your mind in the right attitude.
You have to have that. Mm-hmm. And then wealth, like I do jujitsu and train, so I write those down or eat well because. Anyways, I just that takes me it's called the hour of power, and I take almost an hour sometimes. It sounds crazy, but you would be if you start being quiet and thinking, planning things out. You can knock out so much in a day. It's crazy much time you can waste. And then finally, I know I'm being kind of long-winded on this, but
no, definitely you're not being long-winded.
Okay,
keep going.
I appreciate it. I think reading is we talked about it a little earlier, is massively important. So literally, it's not. I'm not bragging on how much I read. I can read all the pages in the world. If I don't take anything from it, it means nothing. But it's like a 500-page book. I'm gonna have it done in 4 days. Not because I'm a speed reader. I got 3 hours in the morning to do stuff. So guess what? If I'm planning, if I'm looking for real estate that I'm starting to try to get into, I'll spend some time on there looking for properties, but then I might have 45 minutes or an hour to read, and I sit there and I'll read.
So is this all pre-scheduled? While you're going through, is it a planning thing that you do in the morning?
Yeah. And
then you put in time slots sort of deal?
Yeah. And then and the thing I like about it, I'm not, again, the schedule and the journal serves you. I don't serve it.
That's the next question I was going to ask. Does that ever make you feel trapped in a way?
At first it used to, until I realized I'm you work for me, to the journal. So I might write something in, and I'll just mark it out, and I'll do something different at times. As long as I don't mark something out because something's hard. Like I mark.
You have rules.
Yeah. I'm not going to like let myself off the hook because hey, I don't want to do jiu-jitsu now. I'm just going to sit at home. That's not acceptable. That's a non-negotiable. Because sometimes I don't want to do jiu-jitsu. I want to go home and relax and eat dinner.
That's like David Goggins.
Oh, that guy.
Goggins.
That guy's insane, man. That guy's insane. That's. I just bought his book on audiobook just so I could hear him talk about it.
It seems like you pull a lot of things from these guys.
Well, it's cool, and I'm not. I wish. I don't know if I can even hold his jock strap though, man.
I don't know if you'd want to, man.
Yeah.
I feel like you got to look at it like they're all just like a template you can live your life by, and like you might might pull it from a little bit.
There's definitely some good there. But he goes way too far.
He goes crazy.
He's peeing blood and stuff.
Yeah, because you don't want to be the next them. You want to be you. You want to be the next you. You're going to be you.
Their journey is to help you be a better you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing I like about like why do you do all that? So getting up when I go to work, it's not that exactly what you just said. Like when I train or whatever it is, it's really not to beat the other guy because I think that's a failure. But when I get to work, I've already mastered so much that day that I go in with just confidence. Like, and the guy that's on the phone trying to, chew me out about something, I'm like, I've already defeated this guy. Like that sounds like that's how I'm competitive. Like this guy probably wrote a bed complaining and some of these, not all, but the guy, like Jordan Peterson talked about, the quote dangerous guy. I'm not talking about physical. I'm talking about the mentally tough guys. Like earlier you said, hey, you guys are all workout stuff. Dude, I guarantee you just knowing you a short amount of time, like you're a mentally tough guy. Like you don't, you are thoughtful in how you think things out. Like, it doesn't have to be that archetype of the warrior type deal. Like there's all kinds of different people, but it just gives you such a confidence going in. And I'm not stressed when I get there. I mean, when you've been up for 3 hours doing all that stuff, like you're ready to conquer anything. Your mind's clear. And it makes your day so much less stressful. For me, and then I have better mental health. I get home and I'm more relaxed. And I face some hard problems at work, but I don't know. It just sets you up for success, man.
I think routine, like a big just routine is the biggest thing that can drive us.
Yeah.
It's like if you just get into some type of routine, we're routine animals. Like
100%.
That's what we live by. That's what drives all of our nervous system.
Absolutely.
And you can definitely feel like, because like even like just routines, like with like eating and stuff, like when you get off that, like you can feel it. Like, I usually can feel if I get off like a routine that I've been trying to follow.
It's like if I can go to bed at like 2 a.m. and I get the same amount of sleep if I went to bed at like midnight, and I'll feel like crap the next day just because you're out of the routine.
Yeah, 100%. Well, like last night, that's one thing. There's an awesome speech, and I would highly recommend if you haven't heard it. It's called like it's got like a really intense title, like the greatest speech on the internet or something silly, but it's Arnold Schwarzenegger sitting in front of a bunch of folks talking and at like a course. And one thing he says, he starts talking about the amount of time you have in the day, and he was giving his story a little bit. And then one thing he's like, he's like, you have 6 hours to sleep, and then he started to move on. He's like, I see you laughing, and he goes, you probably want to sleep 8 hours. He's like, sleep faster. Like I know there's like those doctors like, you need 8 hours sleep, but here's what I'm going to say. Like there's nights where I because of something I did or the extra work I did, I stay up till like 11:30. I don't like doing that because I am tired. But the thing is, I don't make an excuse next morning. I'm still up at 4:15 because it's my fault. I made the choice to stay up, so I face the consequences. If I start making excuses for myself, like, oh, I deserve this or I need to sleep in, guess what? Just go to sleep early the next day. And then I will, because after a while, you'll catch up with you.
Yeah.
But I don't do that because of health or whatever. It's a mental thing. I get up and I'm like, it's your fault, Evans. Like, you stayed up late, so you deal with the consequences. If I let myself off the hook, again, I feel that's me personally dulling my sword a little bit. I think you got to sharpen yourself.
You're taking away your own responsibility.
Yeah. Like, and you're making an excuse for yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't like that.
A lot of it's just taking your own personal responsibility.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I feel like that's lost a lot.
Yeah.
Well, it's easier not to.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a lot easier not to.
Yeah.
It's a lot of this stuff, when anyone makes a goal and they don't make it, it was just easier not to make the goal.
Yeah.
And it hurts. I think a lot of people are struggling with their mental health in today's society.
For sure.
And I've had my own battles as well.
All of us have.
Yeah. And, as long as you're striving to better yourself in any way, if you're taking those steps, if you're making your goals, you're going to feel better.
Absolutely. That's the reason I think you got to do it, is because I think as humans, I think we need achievement. Like, you don't have to, your achievement doesn't have to be like, Elon Musk or be the next or whatever. But I think we need achievement. Like, and the only way you get achievement is by doing hard stuff occasionally. But I think that's lost on a lot of people these days. And I think that's a problem as to why people are again, I go to men a lot because that's I guess I know, that's what I am.
Yeah.
So I know me a little bit, and my friends obviously are dominantly male, and but I think that's part of the problem is like I see they're searching for something, and if you're never challenging yourself or doing hard stuff, like we have so much comfort. Kind of go back to the hedonism. I'm not against hedonism, but I think if hedonism taken to an extreme. I kind of ascribe more to stoicism, I guess. But I like pleasure. I like watching a movie.
I think everything's good in moderation.
Exactly.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like I've seen people do both well.
Yeah. Well, David Goggins is the guy that's like, I mean, he's not even stoic. I don't even know what it's a past.
He's got his own category. And it's obvious to me that you lean that way.
Yeah, I lean
but without being able to check yourself and knowing when it's time to be hedonistic and time to get in it and do the hard shit, you're not going to be a productive person.
Yeah. It's funny. My wife literally like a month ago, she's awesome. Kayla, and I asked her, I said, hey, be 100% honest. And she knows that when I say this, I'm not going to change my mind. I was like, what is something that my weakness, like that you see, you know me better than anybody. Like, what can I do better? What am I sucking at or something? And she literally said, she's like, you're afraid to rest. She's like, you need to. She's like, you need to stop looking at it as like, because I'm like, so basically I'm like, you know what? I need to stop and smell the roses and enjoy it. It's not always about achievement.
You schedule in some.
Yeah. So you hit that. You hit
see
that.
The trees, see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
What was that? There was a commercial. It was like, go and smell the roses.
For traveling.
Yeah,
that's the idea. They want people like you who are working their asses off, got a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Go and smell the roses. Go travel.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. You waste all that. If you just push, and then one day your life's gone. Like, that I don't want to do that either.
It's a weird balance.
It is.
You need a bit of both.
100%.
You can spend too much time chilling and you don't get anywhere, and you're being a bum.
Yeah.
Or you can spend too much time working and you die with a bunch of money, and guess what? You died with a bunch of money.
Absolutely.
Or whatever it is.
But you can pass it on generational wealth.
Yeah.
I feel like that's also
and
lost.
many people do go for it. To me, my life, I'm a little hedonistic. I like having the pleasures of life. I work for the pleasures of life.
Yeah. What's funny to me though, like I do work and I am trying to build wealth. I'm starting to like, some of my planning is like, actually worked on a website, some things, and it's not out yet, but because of other streams of income. But the reason I'm doing it, I could not care less about a Ferrari or whatever. If you want to do that's cool. But for me, it's about freedom.
Absolutely.
And
you need money to have freedom.
Yes. Is that crazy?
It's true. It's freedom.
Exactly.
Freedom tickets.
That's an unfortunate reality of
and
it.
I'm a minimalist, man. Like, I don't even like a lot. My wife hates it. Like, I want to throw everything out. Like, if I was a bachelor, I would have like one fork, one spoon, one bowl, one plate. Like, I love that. But so it's not even about the things for me. But yeah, it's about, I don't want to owe any man anything. So the word mortgage literally means death grip. So
crazy.
if mortuary, if you go to the etymology of mortgage, it means death grip.
Cow, wow.
Yeah.
They got you by the balls, man.
Think about a death grip, man.
Well, dude, I feel like all men are like that. They just do not. Well, you don't want to owe a debt.
Yeah.
Yeah, but some get into they want whatever it is more than they care
that
about
is true.
freedom, you know?
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of people in that situation, and it causes a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Because if one day you can't make that payment,
that's
you're
awful.
hosed, or you can't take the day off, or whatever it is, because you have to have it.
Yeah,
it's due on the first.
Yeah,
you know?
And what happens as a man? Like again, as men, I believe that we need like the moment that we're subjected and to others, and we lose that independence. I think that takes something away. Like you've seen those men who've been very proud men that lose their job, and they're 50 or 60, and at that point their identity is almost lost. Like it's a sad thing because they're struggling or whatnot. And like I don't want to be in that situation. I empathize and I feel for those who are in that. And that's terrible, especially as a proud man that all your life then everything's gone. Yeah, I don't want to be there, and I can avoid it now.
At every stage of your life, you just want to be able to find happiness.
Yeah. Enjoy your life, quiet life.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So now, I mean, obviously you're a crazy disciplined man. Was there any like time, like in your life that really got you to be disciplined? Like, was there like a specific time, or was it kind of like over a period of time? Like, was there just something that was like, you know what? I'm disciplined, and I'm gonna be great. I want to be the person who I am.
It's funny you say that, Jay, because like, I haven't really thought about that, but as I say, things are coming to mind. So I kind of alluded to it earlier. I never felt that I was poor, but again, my mom, I had great parents. I was the oldest of 8 in the trailer park, and I was always like, my friends always had like Abercrombie. That's back when Abercrombie and Fitch and American Eagle, and I had like Walmart and Goodies or something. And then I got like, I was kind of actually sensitive. And again, not saying anything against sensitive, but I was overly sensitive. I was afraid of confrontation, and I was fairly weak. And then probably in middle school, I started, honestly, football. I started training a little bit, but it wasn't until high school and actually reading, and I got put in martial arts, and I started gaining confidence. And I also didn't want to be poor anymore. I'm the first person in my family like graduate college, which isn't a big deal. A lot of people do that, but I mean, generationally,
it's a big deal.
Yeah, it was big, and then it just like, it's like a muscle. I loved seeing results. Like people who train and keep going are people who see results. So you try to put a person that you're trying to get them to lose weight or whatever, if they don't see results, they're going to quit.
Yep.
But like I was seeing results mentally, and also one thing I think God gifted me with, it's nothing that I do, but sometimes I noticed that people are drawn to me, and there was some leadership there. And I took that very seriously. I didn't want to use that or waste that or squander that or lead them astray. So I started reading development books and things like that, and again, the classics we keep talking about. And so really, man, I think it was just honestly, I was tired of being weak and poor, and started doing things. And then after that, it started becoming, I guess, part of my identity. And then I don't know that anything else gives me that high. Other than that, I guess. But I have to think about that some more, though. That was a good question.
Yeah. So it kind of sounded like it was just sort of like just over your childhood.
Yeah.
You just kind of kept grinding on it a little bit, and just, you know what, I'm done.
Yeah. The first book, and this is so funny because it's so random, but now everyone gives me a hard time, like at my family, everybody knows me, like at my office is full of books and stuff. It's kind of a problem, to be honest. But I wasn't like that until probably my junior year in high school or sophomore year in high school or something. And the first book that really got it was actually an essay, which Jonathan Swift, A Modest Proposal. You guys have heard of that?
I've heard that. I haven't read it yet.
It's political. It's called ad absurdum. So it's actually Latin for like, it's absurd. It's insane. So he posited that he wrote this essay to the Irish people, because that's back when that famine,
potato famine?
Yeah, the potato famine happened. There was a lot of people starving. So he wrote this very serious article about eating your own babies and how to cook them and stuff.
That's where I heard it from.
Yeah,
that's where I heard it from. Because they ran out of everything.
Yeah,
That's what they started writing about. And the Soviet Union wrote this. They wrote this about the same.
But theirs was serious.
Yeah, theirs was serious.
His was not. Yeah, his was satire. But it was so well written that half the people that read it actually thought he was serious and thought he was insane.
Yeah.
And but for some reason, and then the second book I read was Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I don't know why, those two books. And then after that, I'm like,
those are some gnarly books to be reading at that time.
Yeah, I don't know why. And then I kept going, man. Like we talked about Moby Dick. That was probably my favorite book, because I think that was the first big novel I read, and I struggled through it the first time. And then I was very full of zeal at that time, because
you conquered the whale.
Yeah, the white whale, man.
Yeah,
you found the whale, exactly. And I started getting into it, and like there's some crazy chapters. Like that one chapter, they actually talk about there's a Herman Melville wrote this literally right before the Civil War took place. And you talk about a progressive, like, so here's the thing that he did that people, now you would read this and not really realize the importance of it. So they're on the ship called Pequot. I didn't mean to go into book review here, so I hope this is okay. The Pequot, which actually foreshadows its demise. It was an Indian tribe called the Pequot Indians that were just wiped out. So if you know that going in, you literally have a ship named after a tribe that disappeared. So you know something bad's going to happen. But there was a guy named Queequeg, and they kept calling him a savage. He was a black character, but he was very strong. He had filed teeth, and he was just called a savage. And at the time, that's now that's considered racist. And but what Herman Melville did that's so amazing, he actually, in one of his chapters, you guys ever heard of phrenology? It's a pseudoscience.
It has to do with Is that like palm reading and stuff?
Oh, this one's actually phrenology is actually the shape of your skull.
Okay.
Yeah. They used to think that they could determine your criminal tendencies based off the shape of your skull.
We actually went over that in a little bit in the academy.
Oh, for real? They really teach that?
No, they don't teach it. They just kind of bring it up.
Oh, I was like, whoa! I need to
Dude, if you see someone with a head like this,
big one.
Arrest them now.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy. I didn't know that, but like they actually compares him to George Washington, and he was talking about the admirable qualities of him. But at the end of the day, like I didn't realize. I started reading that caused an absolute uproar because the great American hero was compared to a black man, and it was and so it's awesome that Melville in the 50 or something. 40s.
Was putting out challenging ideas.
Yeah, like he really was progressive. But anyways, I'm nerding out a little bit, but it's an awesome book, man. It's an awesome book.
Yeah.
What are all right. Top 5 books a man should read.
Oh man,
that's put you on the spot right there.
That definitely is. Okay, top 5 books man read.
Top 5.
Well, my first thought is immediately like you cannot immediately just go to all macho mindset because there's more to man than just that.
Chicken noodle for the preteen soul.
There we go.
Chicken noodle for the teen soul.
There we go. Absolutely.
Work your way up from there. You don't remember those?
No, I do remember those.
Yeah.
You don't remember that? There was like 100 of them, though. Yeah. Like for the single mom. Like it got kind of super
like Yellow Pages or for dummies.
No, they were they were
huge. They I don't know. They made millions.
Yeah.
They made millions. I'll get back to your question. We got to look this up.
I don't know what the heck this is.
They were all over.
Self-help consumer good and media company. Yeah, dude, they were all over everywhere.
They were.
So what, like parents would buy these books for their kids?
Yeah, so like chicken soup for the teenage soul.
Yeah, absolutely.
The best top 5 books other than chicken noodle for the
There we go. All right. Well,
chicken soup, not chicken noodle.
I talked about it earlier, so and that's why I brought it up because it means a lot. But again, I think for mindset and just as a guy, I have to at least go with Gates of Fire, Stephen Pressfield. Again, if you haven't read it, you have to just buy it and get it.
Great one.
It's phenomenal.
Love it.
Number 2 is, and it's pretty bad that I'm recommending. I can't think of the title. It's from Viktor, I think Frankl. Can you Google this? He was in the Holocaust, and he was what's his book? Man's Search for
Meaning. Man's Search for Meaning. Yeah.
Yeah, Man's Search for Meaning. I've read that book like 3 times, and it's so powerful because he was like a psychologist that was in this camp, these death camps, and the thing that stood out to me in this book the most is first of all what man, and I mean man as a whole, mankind, women can go through in the darkness and the despair and survive. But one thing that is really interesting, I have to say this, is he said because they did awful things to him, right? I mean, unimaginable things that we can't even really fathom. Reading about it doesn't do justice, but he said the one thing that he never saw anyone survive, and this is crazy, was if you took the Nazi guards would take a massive pile of dirt, and they would just tell the X amount of prisoners, I want you to take this dirt and move it over here. And then they would do that. It'd take all day. And they, of course, amount of abuse, they're barely getting fed, all that. The very next day, their mission, they had to take that dirt, move it back over here. And what he found was when man has no meaning, because that is a meaningless task, that they all faded away and died. He said even though they were patriots, that the men who were making, some were actually helping the military. They were building like railroads and stuff. They were using like slave labor essentially. But at least it gave them, they were able to convince themselves, hey, maybe the Allied forces will be able to use this one day. So it gave them meaning. But the moment you have no meaning, there's no will to live. And so that was very profound to me. Like that stood out. Like I think so in a nutshell, like what is your meaning? Like you have to find, and not that you're going to know exactly what that is, but if you don't have something that at least helps wake you up and like in your chest, makes you tick a little bit. If anything, you're living a subpar life maybe, and subpar for you.
And a lot of people will find themselves in that, I think.
Yeah. And it's hard because we don't always know what that is. And it's not always something profound. I mean, not everyone's going to be Gandhi or Mother Teresa. And that's okay. but there's got to be something, man. There's got to be
raising your family.
Yeah,
that
huge.
creates a huge meaning for many.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't have to change the world.
No, yeah, exactly. You just a lot of people who change the world were just doing something very small. And the little boy that puts his finger in the dam in Holland, that seems kind of silly, but like it's just what you can do. Another book is Unbreakable. Have you guys read that by Laura Hillenbrand?
I know of it. They made a movie out of it.
Oh, they made a movie. I didn't
believe so.
They might have. Was it like a they're in a camp or like a war camp?
Oh right? Man, yeah, I didn't know that. Oh yeah, it's definitely a war camp. Dude, this book was definitely not that one. It's maybe it's Unshake. Man, now
I think it's Unbreakable. I know what you're talking
Zimmerman?
About.
Is his name Zimmerman? Put in Zimmerman, see if that Zamperini. There we go. Unbreakable Zamperini. This guy.
It's like an Olympian, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So and not again, I know you know a book review on all these, but just really Unbroken. I'm sorry, it's Unbroken, not Unbreakable. World War II. He's he's an amazing track athlete, goes to USC. Louis Zamperini, what a boss. That guy, like that it just inspires me like almost no man, like what he went through. But long story short, he ends up getting shot down over in the ocean and survives at sea. Like he actually has people that are in the same like life raft as him that die. There's sharks circling him. Like just to survive what he did could have been the end of the book itself. Like it was awful. Like it was torturous. They were just baked, and they finally find a boat, and they're so stoked, and it's a Japanese war boat. So like can you imagine you get shot down? Like you think you're despair. You're seeing you're literally they're having to throw them in the ocean because they're dying. Like you've had no water. Like you're just skin and bones. And then you're saved, and you realize it's your enemy. And then they take him to a POW camp in Japan. And they, for whatever reason, they hated Louis because they could not break his spirit. There was a particular guard, I can't remember his name, but was brutal to him. At one point, he made him hold above his head like this piece of wood. And you know how hard it is to hold something above your head for like even 5 minutes.
You're starved.
He held it for like hours. And he's like, because he goes, if you drop it, he goes, I'm putting a bullet between your eyes right now. Like he was going to kill him, and he wouldn't drop it. Like, and they beat him and he could not be broken, man. Like, and then they finally this is what's amazing. At the very end, they get rescued, and he survives against all odds. And he actually went back. He found, years later, he found the guard in Japan and reached out to him and wanted to reach him and say, hey, I love you. I forgive you. And the guard couldn't bring himself to talk to him, I think, because of the shame of what he went through. So that book is a powerful, powerful book. Like I couldn't put it down. So that's one. I have to go with, we talked about it earlier, but I think as far as in your mind, maybe this is not one that every man should read, but at least off the top of my head, it had a profound impact on me. Again, was Dostoevsky's Brothers Karamazov. We talked about it earlier. It's three brothers. I won't go into the whole story. It's massive, but there's three brothers, and just the dynamic, you see three different types of mindsets just shown in these brothers. And I caught myself, I don't know any other book that made me as introspective as that one. It's not a book you just want to jump down and fly through. You got to slow down. You got to listen.
Don't secret.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You cannot read that so fast.
Brothers, I might be pronouncing it wrong, but is it Brothers Karamazov? How I've always said it.
Brothers Karamazov.
There might be someone online that's like, that's not exactly how you say it, but it's K. It's K-A. There it is. Yeah. Karamazov. Is that right? That's what. That's how I read it.
Karamazov.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. It looks like I'm not a Russian speaker, so. And then for me, I mean, I would be remiss to not say this because if any book that's had the most impact, it's easily the Bible. It's 100% impact. I mean, for me, it's alive, and when I read it, it actually changes me. It challenges me. And even we were talking about Proverbs earlier. Even I have people who aren't even religious that can read Proverbs. They'll read a proverb a day because there's 31 chapters in Proverbs. So you literally can, whatever calendar day it is, you can read it. You talk about some profound stuff, man. Like, even at work, things I hear, like I every once in a while you have some interpersonal conflicts that between other people, and you got to work it out. How many times have you had someone come to you and say, you hear one side of the story and you're fired up like, what? Like, you want to jump in. That other person is horrible. And then you have to be wise. You hear the other person's story, and you never realize it's always, there's proverbs in there like, a person who hears one side of the story makes a decision is a fool. Like, that's so simple. So, I mean, it's
common sense.
But a lot of people do it. There's
always three sides to a story.
Yeah. Two persons in the truth. 100%. A soft answer turns away wrath. If someone's yelling and chilling, if you're just calm and you respond calmly, you're taking their power, because guess what? They're not having an impact on you. So like, you can just keep going through, and Proverbs itself, and that chapter, that's just one book of it though. Like, Ecclesiastes, also written by Solomon. Have you ever read Ecclesiastes?
No.
It's only like, 5 or 6 chapters, but Solomon wrote this, at the end of his life, when he literally is, considered biblical. I mean, even historians, like,
he's
at least
King Solomon, the
wisest man ever. He literally, God didn't give him anything, and he's the wise. But outside of the wisdom, which people could say subjective, there's the Queen Sheba came and was amazed, but he was so incredibly wealthy. Like, he couldn't even count his money. He had so much money, so much wealth, and he ended up having like 700 wives or 300 concubines or something. He lost himself in the hedonism alone, because he got away from and at the very end of his life, he just went into like a existential crisis. And it doesn't read like the Bible. I'm telling you, just read it. Like, you don't even have to be religious to read it. He starts asking, like, what's the point of life? Like, everything's meaningless. There's nothing new under the sun. Like, everything I work for is going to fade. People are going to forget about me. Like, what? It's almost depressing. But if you read it, like, it makes you just think about the things that we're pursuing. What is the purpose? What are the things that are unnecessary in my life? And I think that's with any book. I guess I'll sum it up with this. It's like any book. It has to make you think, and it has to challenge you, and you actually have to have the hard truths. You can't just read something and automatically always assume you're the hero. Every once in a while, like, you're not the hero in the book, you're the antagonist, or you're the anti-hero. And you have to see how that affects other people. So, I don't know if that was 5 books.
It's a good 5.
Yeah, that is a good 5.
So
I'm gonna have to. I've read one.
There you go. That's not bad. I'm over 5.
Yeah. and you asked me another day. Some of those would stay the same, but like Dostoevsky, that one. There's so many, man. That was a hard question though.
Oh yeah.
Set me up.
I wanted a hard question for you,
Josh. It's funny. I've asked many successful people, what books would you suggest? It's a common thing I ask people like in college when I'm listening to speakers or professors or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Almost every single one I've ever asked has said the Bible.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's I've tried to read the Bible before I get caught up in the first bit of the New Testament.
Yeah.
But there's got to be just mountains of knowledge and moral
learning
to be
you
had.
got to think about that. The Bible, it wasn't just written in one day. It was years and years and years.
There's dozens of authors
of stuff just put into this book.
Yeah. And I think one thing that helps is not reading it as the translation's important.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to read King James,
I don't like that.
Yeah. And there's some people there's some people who listen that believe it's King James or it's not Bible. I don't believe that personally. I've studied even like how
I just look at Goliath and it's just like, the dude made him 2 feet taller than he actually was.
Yeah.
Like,
you can go in and like, you got to find a translation that you can understand. I think that's the key. Because otherwise you're fighting an uphill battle. But the amount of knowledge, like I had a professor, Dr. Birdwell in college. He was awesome, but he wasn't a religious person, but he said he read the Bible all the time. And he says it had a huge impact. Like he had us as a classroom, we all had to read the book of Job, which is a pretty crazy story in of itself. But Job lost everything and he got it back in the end. But yeah, man, there's so much breadth that it's hard to even capture. And literally every human condition is captured in there. And that's the thing when you realize, I used to read the Bible and I believe God is omniscient. He's omnipotent. He's perfect. But I was reading it as all these great heroes were. And I came to find out like these people were like every single character in the Bible outside of Jesus was flawed, very flawed. I mean, David was a murderer. Or Moses was a murderer. David literally, you guys heard King David, right? Mm-hmm. So, Bathsheba. Yeah.
I'm not familiar with Bathsheba.
So he literally is like one of the greatest kings ever. He's got a man after God's own heart. And then I love how because he doesn't expect perfection because no one's perfect. He's literally on the rooftop. It says when the king should be at war. Instead of going to war, he looks over and sees a very, very, very beautiful woman, Bathsheba, and she's bathing. So as king, guess what? You talk about absolute power corrupts. I mean, you're talking about like people take authority. Well, guess what? Even King David, who had a pure heart, he actually called her in and slept with her. And some theologians even believe potentially raped her. I mean, and then he realized what he did and was like, and her husband was at war, Uriah. And so he's like, if this comes out, I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose the throne. And so he then calls Uriah back from the front lines and says, hey, go spend the night with your wife. Enjoy it. That way, if she got pregnant, it would not look like. And out of his honor integrity, he's like, I can't do that, like, because my men are in the front. So then he got him drunk one more, tried it again, and he still wouldn't do it. So guess what he does? He calls his lead commander and he says, put him on the front line and then pull back, and he gets killed. And you talk about like that, and I'm not, and David, and you're like, well, that's unforgivable. For Uriah, it was. And yet David, the whole point of that is David was some of the greatest feats, and he pursued God. But yet in that moment, one of the darkest, most evil things you could do. And it just shows that as humans, like, we are flawed, man. I just love that because no one's perfect in there, but yeah.
Yeah, you're preaching right now, man.
Oh yeah,
love it. I love it.
It's awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think it's a good point, a good place to stop.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say, Josh, to the people?
Yeah. Anything encouraging to get people to
gotcha
to be anything.
No, I appreciate. I would say the one thing I would say is, if hear me, I don't want it to seem like I'm definitely not close to being the most successful person. I've found that if you will pursue, I don't want to say greatness because that's kind of cliche. If you will pursue being the best you, and again, that doesn't mean I hate it because I hate corny pickup lines. I hate corniness. Like, I hate cliches so much.
They work sometimes.
I know it's so hard to say this when you're saying, but like, all I can say is start with love. And again, if you love, again, I go back to the Bible right here. It says that if you love your brother as you love yourself, you like that, and you love God. But even if you just love your brother, but and as you love yourself, that you capture all the laws. Like we talked about all the regulations being passed. Like, guess what? You're not going to steal from someone you love. You're not going to kill someone you love. You're not going to try to steal someone's life from someone, or a wife from someone you love. Like, you're not going to be evil to someone you love. So just if humanity, first thing I say that really helps me is every single person you come across, try to sincerely care for that person, and even if you don't know them. Number two, and then you can't realize you can control nothing outside of your own life. You can control nothing outside of that. So that's where you need to be. Like, I would say, pursue excellence in that, pursue greatness, and that starts with your family if you have one, and that starts with yourself. And it's not just about physical greatness, being able to bench press 400 pounds or all that stuff. That's great, and that's a goal. But that pales in comparison to who you are as a person. Because at the end of the day, how people are going to remind you, they're not going to remember, you're a black belt in jiu-jitsu, or, you can shoot from a 1,000 yards away and put it in a bullseye. That's all cool and great, but it's going to be how the impact you had on your fellow man. So, in a nutshell, that's how I would end it. Yeah.
I like it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. A little bit. Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, guys. It's been awesome. This is a really cool place you have here, and man, I'm going to keep listening. So.
Yeah.
I mean, when we started this, you were one person who I was like,
you were a big fish.
I appreciate it, man.
I wanted you on.
I hope it was at least interesting.
Definitely, it was a really good podcast.
Awesome.
All righty. Peace.
See you guys.